Good morning, junk luxury cars you should never buy. Q&A, let's get into some of the comments and questions that you, the viewers, have for me. So let's get into the first one. Which X5 model years have the B58 engine, and how do you find out which engine is the model year equipped with? And that question came from Naya Woti, and sorry if I messed up your name, I do apologize. These are actual viewers. So I want to just cut to the chase. That's a great question. The X5 with the B58. And we all talk about the B58 engine. Everybody knows that's one of BMW's most reliable. It's a 3-liter twin scroll single turbo engine. And again, 3 liters makes anywhere from 335 horsepower up to 385 and beyond, depending on which vehicle and state of tune. But it's a much improved turbo straight 6 engine from their previous generation vehicles like the N55 before it and the N54, which was a twin turbo originally back in 2007. That engine was a mess, and we'll talk about that one as well. But this vehicle here, or this engine, the B58 has heat encapsulation, so it maintains the heat. So it regulates, even when the vehicle's off, it prevents the highs from surging and the lows from cooling off. So if you're dealing with high and low ambient temperatures, it allows the temperature to stay more stable in the vehicle and sort of regulates that consistency. It's an insulator essentially and prevents a lot of those extremes, which prevents cracking of plastics and gaskets. It's much more improved. It also has a better fuel system. It also had a better bottom end reinforced crank assembly system. The whole engine is vastly improved. The old troublesome water pump that was electric in the previous engines are long gone. They shed those as well. And in the B58, they brought in a mechanical water pump, which you can monitor through a little whiz hole, like honestly a lot of vehicles, but it's a lot less problematic and certainly a lot less pricey to replace. So the entire engine literally has been overhauled and revamped and built more for reliability. Is it perfect? No, you still have some plastic connect together hoses. There still could be some problem areas, but that's with a lot of miles, a lot of hard use and abuse. Generally, it's a much more tolerable or tolerant engine than a lot of their other outgoing Turbo 6s. So it is the best. And you ask specifically which model and what do you call it? The designation in most BMW's world that are using the B58 engine are designated 40. So 40. It doesn't matter if you're talking 340. The 340 means it's got the B58. The 440, it's got the B58. The X5 40i has the B58. The X3 M40i, of course, also has the B58. So you get the gist. Anything with the 40 designation means you have the B58 engine. It is a workhorse. It's super reliable. And I would recommend it, for those that are okay with, it's not a base Toyota. It's not a base Honda, but it's the best thing to it. And it certainly gives you way more performance and fun and efficiency. But in the X5s that you're asking about, which model years? Basically everything from 2018 and up. So that's what you want to look for that particular vehicle. Another video of mine that I recently released was 10 junk luxury cars that you better dump before the warranty expires. And I failed to put on one vehicle, and I didn't do it for a specific reason because I don't truly believe it's a luxury vehicle. Some would debate that. But we actually have a viewer, Jeep Cam 2692. Jeep Cam actually asked the question, why Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited is not on your list for the junk SUVs or luxury SUVs or vehicles that you should get rid of. You're right, it certainly belongs on a list that should be gone before warranty expires. I mean, a lot of people are driving Jeep Grand Cherokees. They're very popular. They're all over the road. But we know Stellantis products certainly are lacking reliability. They're pricey, and Stellantis, who builds Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram products, that family, as well as Alfa Romeo, and those types of Fiat and vehicles like that are all owned by the same manufacturer, and the focus is not so much on reliability. It's more of, bringing something new and fresh, certainly expanding the marketplace and selling it for maximum profit. That clearly their main mandates from my personal experience, and the Grand Cherokees do belong on a lacking reliability type list. So yes, you're right, it belongs. Why? Grand Cherokee, there was issues. Remember a few years ago, somebody thought they put their automatic transmission into park. They got out, and then the vehicle rolled away and crushed that person. Unfortunately, that person is no longer with us. One big experience. There's definitely cases where that was an issue, made some recalls and bulletins. Anyway, Bob's your uncle. Delamination of dashboard parts. cosmetics, fitment issues. Of course, we talk about the TIPM, the totally integrated power module. Classic issue with a lot of Jeep products, a lot of Chrysler and Stellantis products. A totally integrated power module. It's a centralized module that feeds, your power windows, your locks, your gauges, your lighting, and there's cases where it shuts off your fuel pump too. So TIPM is a very problematic area. Suspension issues, cracked head bolts. I mean, these vehicles are no shortage of problem areas. Now, they have gotten better with some of the late model transmissions, but there were issues and recalls there with wiring and harnesses, and the transmission themselves have had some significant issues. So Jeep and quality or reliability never go hand in hand. So you're right. For vehicles that you want to dump before warranty's expired, the Jeep Grand Cherokee, I would get rid of it. The next question is from Edie and Wendy Bench. And it looks like they asked the question, oh, please stop with the belly aching. Do you own one? And that was referencing a video I made about BMW reliability summarized. And that was a short that I had created. And I was really bombing, like really fast to some of the key issues. And it's true. Do I own one? Absolutely. I've owned many BMWs. I've owned BMW's 318 Ti, 320, 325, BMW M5 with the S85. That's the E60. Love it. Still own that vehicle. As well as the E70 X5 35D. I've owned that. And as well, I owned BMW 335i, which really reinforces my attitudes about reliability in BMW. Now, we also mentioned about the B58 vastly improved. So take that with a grain of salt. But that N54 that I had in my old 335, because it was an 07, it was a great car. It sounded wonderful. Mine was a manual gearbox, rear-wheel drive. It was everything you wanted out of a BMW. The fun, the experience. But sadly, check engine lights, limp modes were nothing new. Water pumps. Yes, I had to change a water pump thermostat, multiple cooling system lines. These are all with 60,000 miles on that car. It also had the injectors done through factory, originally warranty. Piezo injectors were done, but that was a problem area as well. Wastegate rattle, and I was starting to get a rattle on mine as well. I had water pump or coolant leaks that actually came from all over the place. And the front end of the engine, I had coolant as well as oil leaks that seemed to be spouting from the oil filter housing and the cooler assembly. There's two O-rings. One goes to the engine, one goes between the cooler and the housing, and they're all problematic. And mine both started to leak. I had coolant and oil all over. Unfortunately, to maintain them, they're not easy yet either, because to do that repair, I had to pull the bulkhead off below the windshield, the cross members, the intake manifold had to come off, and I knew all that. I researched it all, so I did all the resealing of the intake manifold, the 6 individual O-rings that go into the intake manifold. I regasketed that, and I went in there because one of the bolts that supports the oil filter housing to the engine is actually hiding under the onto the intake manifold, and that's why I had to actually go through all that trouble to change those gaskets. So it's a very labor-intensive vehicle. The water pump thermostat I did, very labor-intensive. Strip the bottom of the engine. It is a real pain, and I'm not going to lie, it took me about 10 or 12 hours on the driveway. Professional mechanic knows what he's doing, probably 5 or 6 hours, but it's going to be a costly repair, and it's only going to last you 50, 60,000 miles. So if it wasn't one thing, it was another. And yes, I stand by my case. Certain engines are much better than others. Some are great. The B58, the B48s are great engines, but a lot of the engines were very problematic. And yes, that's summarized very accurately. And then another great question from Alan Martins actually asked the question, does Lexus still make non-turbo hybrid engines? And that's my video that I featured Lexus versus Acura versus Infiniti reliability. And I basically said, who's the most reliable? And I sort of summarized that. It's a great video. You might want to check that out. But Alan Martins asked that question, do they build non-turbo engines? Because we know what the latest is. Obviously Lexus and Toyota have had some issues lately with some of their turbo engines. The new 2.4 has been some drivability challenges, and even more so the new 3.4 liter twin turbo V6, seeing some issues in the GX550 as well as the LX600 and Toyota's Tundra. We know possibly Sequoia all have seen some issues with those engines. Now, with that said, does Lexus still carry a non-turbo engine? Absolutely they do. So when you step up into the higher vehicle levels, of course the RX and some of the bigger vehicles, they're utilizing, where there was a V6, now they're going to Turbo 4. Where there was a V8, now they're going to the Turbo 6. But think about some of the smaller SUVs. So now as we get into the NX territory, yes, the NX 350H is one example. If you go with the 350, the 350 is standard 350, they give you the turbo 2.4. But if you go with the 350H, H, it gives you the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, absolutely bulletproof engine, made it up through a CVT or Toyota's version of a CVT to their hybrid system, absolutely bulletproof. I would go with possibly the 350H or the 450H Plus, which gives you the plug-in hybrid, same drive, same engine. So those are some great options in the NX series, as well as the UX features a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, also plugged in with a hybrid. Not plugged in literally, but it's a hybrid drivetrain. So a couple of great options. As you go into the lower spec levels and trim and model levels in Lexus, you can still get some of the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engines and hybrid connections. So yes, you definitely can, and those are ones I would seriously look at. As a matter of fact, I was even shopping for a 450 Plus NX. I love the vehicle. I think it looks good. It's peppy. It's very brisk in performance. And the fact that you can drive 50, 60 kilometers or about 30,000 miles or 30 miles on a charge on electric alone means that you can do a lot of your short daily commutes and just plug it in every evening and not worry about even spilling an ounce of gas. It's great. And then Rudu Raj actually asked me the question here. Thoughts on a 2017 to 2019 GLS 450 Mercedes? And that's referencing a video I did about 10 of the most reliable luxury cars worth owning after warranty. I would say it's not the worst vehicle. I do want to advise, though, first of all, Mercedes-Benz has not been building necessarily the best, most solid vehicles in the last number of years. We own a 2018 C-Class, and it hasn't, it's been relatively durable, but the engine's a little rattly. Body parts are popping off. We've had a couple of problems there. It's a little bit of a rolling noise, kind of a rotating noise in the front end. I don't know. We have the all-wheel drive system, so who knows? But, there's been some little issues. A lot of the big issues, though, that you're going to expect a lot of these vehicles are related to electrics. And I've seen it, I lived it, and I personally see a lot of people living with a lot of issues with electrical gremlins, failures, fault codes popping up, module failure here, module failure, lights not functioning, things start not working, or, cooling system, HVAC system faults. You get things that pop up on the dash. And we experienced that in extreme weather last year. And what I can attest, and same thing with a lot of these vehicles, the GLS is the same thing. A weak battery, a lot of these electronics and the modules require a certain voltage tolerance. If the battery's a little weak, maybe in really extreme cold weather, you go to crank the vehicle, if the battery's weaker and it cranks slowly, you've actually just depleted a lot of the battery quality and the life. So what ends up happening is, all of a sudden for a while, you might be running a lower voltage until the alternator is able to rejuvenate it. And then what you have is it starts puking out check engine lights, and maybe not check engine lights, service lights or fault codes that maybe don't stop the vehicle from running, but they give you these weird features. Even though it says your light's not working, the light's on. There's all kinds of weird gremlins that start popping up once you run low battery voltage. So it's imperative that you have a good quality battery and that always checks out your charging system is good. But I have heard of some issues. Yes. Transmission issues, blown transmissions in some cases. A few people complaining about hard shifting, especially switch it to sport mode and it gets abnormally hard. Now, it's not the worst vehicle, certainly, and every manufacturer has their ups and downs. Would I advise it? Not necessarily to somebody who doesn't have a little extra money laying around in the bank, because I do believe owning one of these vehicles outside of warranty does mean that you should have, at least $5,000, $10,000 afloat. Because if you blow a transmission, you're $7,000, $8,000. If you blow an engine, you're $20,000 out. But those aren't typical of things. The engines are pretty robust. I haven't seen or heard a lot of engine issues. Motor mounts, transmission mounts, and obviously a little bit of a shake. There have been complaints about some of that. I've also heard a lot of other cosmetic issues. Bolsters on the seats over here. We've seen cosmetic challenges, and that is not an uncommon issue where the leather starts to come unconnected and you wind up with some of the foam popping out, or even that bolster being kind of wrinkly and folded, not just from the normal wrinkles, but actually, in some cases it's just a matter of it's just letting go and it's just loosening up and it just turns to crap. A lot of electrical gremlins is what I've been told. A lot of people who I've talked to have had electrical troubles. Differential transmission, do your fluids. I would honestly, if you're going to buy one, if you buy one right away, make sure you do the fluid overhaul right away. I don't even agree with a lot of these modern day vendors overdoing these, extending these oil service intervals to, a year or beyond a year and doing it, 18,000 kilometers, 12,000 miles. I always believe in doing oil a lot sooner than that. Does it need to be done every 3,000 miles? No, I think that's a little excessive, but 5 to 8,000 miles max on on oil changes. And a lot of you want that vehicle to last. So that's the bottom line. You want it to last. Get those fluids changed right away, especially if you don't know the service history of that vehicle, because if you're buying a used one, like you're asking about a 17 to a 19, definitely make sure the fluids are done, the battery's in good shape, or it's fairly late model, or anticipate a battery swap soon. But generally speaking, mechanically, it's a complex vehicle. It's a Mercedes, and they do break, and they're not the most reliable vehicles. As a matter of fact, they're way down in the bottom barrel. If you look at consumers' reports, they're one of the lowest in terms of overall reliability. In practice, a lot of that is, again, nuisance, low battery voltages, cosmetic troubles, and that just means somebody's bringing a vehicle in. It might get reported as a problem. So at the end of the day, are they the worst vehicles? I don't think so at all, but they're not built like they used to be. So I just want to give you that word of advice. And with all of that said, check that out. Ouch! Some of the 10 most expensive vehicles to own in 10 years. You're going to want to see that. It's going to teach you the whole thing. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.